Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk more about exponential functions, and we're going to create some equations giving different sets of information. Now, today we're going to deal with the general case of y equals a times b to the x. Normally we can have plus k at the end, but for today we're going to assume our horizontal asymptote is always y equals 0. So our k value is always going to be 0, so we just have y equals a times b to the x. So we'll start like we normally do with our warm-up. Strongly recommend you practice this. A problem like this could show up on an assessment. Make sure we can set up the equation and put a value in. So here we go. Mr. Minowitz is beginning to lose his hair due to students not doing homework, complaining, not showing up to the Google Meets, doing whatever. Currently, I have 100,000 strands of hair. Currently, I'm 30 years old. I'm losing 7% of my hair every year to gray or falling out. How many strands of hair will I have when I retire at age 64? So go ahead and pause the video, try it out, see that you can do this problem. Okay, so hopefully you thought this problem wasn't too bad. You got some parts. Maybe you missed a part. That's okay too. So in this case, I used H instead of, so hair is a function of time. I start with 100,000 strands of hair and I lose 7%. So I start with 100% and I lose 7%. And I get 93%, which I can convert to a decimal. And then T, I would say time after age 30. Okay, it's really time in years. So I have to always be careful when I'm defining my variables. Because then the next step, I need to put in 34, because 34 years from now, I get to retire. Whole lot of years from now. It's going to be a long time. And I figure out I'll have very little hair left. I'll have 8,480 strands of hair. And it probably came out to a decimal, and I'm pretty sure I rounded. Starting value, multiplier. You can do that. You can do exponential functions. So vocab is the same. We still need to find our initial value and our multiplier. Growth is if my multiplier is above 1. Decay is if my multiplier is below 1. Okay, today, once again, I said we're going to ignore k. Most of these functions are going to have an asymptote where we approach 0. So once again, we got to do some thinking. What information do you need to be provided in a situation or word problem in order to write an equation for an exponential function? Okay, write down anything you think of that I could give you that would be helpful for writing an exponential function. Go ahead, pause the video, write down what you're thinking. That'll help you learn. Okay, so I'll write down some ideas I've heard in the past. Obviously, if I give you initial condition and growth factor, if I give you the A and the B, you're good to go. Or if I give you the initial condition and the rate, like we did in the last lesson, if I give you the R, we can find the growth factor, and that's great too. Now, what we're going to see today is if I give you any 2 points and the horizontal asymptote, we can come up with an equation. We're going to put the points in and kind of do something similar when we solve linear equations, where we're going to do a substitution or elimination. We're going to find A and find B. So ideally, I'd give you the initial condition and growth factor or the percent increase and decrease. But more often than not, when I'm doing equation fitting, when I'm coming up with an equation, I just have 2 random points in space and I have to come up with the equation. So first thing I could be given is a table. Table, they give me 4 points. They only have to give me 2 and tell me it's exponential, but the more points they give me, the more I can see that it's exponential. We need to find A and B. So in this case, we still have y equals A times B to the x. Got to find A and B. Now, from a table, we saw that the starting point is also called the y-intercept. So right here, I got my A value. Okay, my y-intercept is 0, 4. My A value is 4. Halfway done. Table is really nice, especially if they give you the y-intercept. If they don't, we'll have another method in a little bit. Now my multiplier, I got to find. So from one step to another, I multiply by a value. And you can pick any two steps. So from 4.8 to 5.76, take one step. So 4.8 times b times something is 5.76. Or I can use 0.2 to 0.3. So 5.76 times something times b is 6.912. Now, every single one of you can answer this question of how to find b. So go do it. Find b. Okay, we'll do a division, and we get b is 1.2. Now that we have a and b, we can write our equation. The goal is to find the starting value and the multiplier. We're going to see that's very similar. We got a table. Now we got a graph. Now here I see it's a decay graph. So I know b is between 0 and 1. So ultimately, when I find b value, if I don't get a number between 0 and 1, I knew I did something wrong. So to find a, let's look for the y-intercept. There it is, 20. My scale goes up by 10, so please don't tell me it's 2. It's 20, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Okay, if you want to write it out on the graph, that's awesome too. They only need to tell you this much information for the scale though. To find the b value, let's look for the multiplier. I'm going to do the same thing as I did last time. I'm going to take a height, which this height is 40 right here. And my next height is 20. So 40 times b equals 20. Now I could also look at two other points. Maybe I want to say, I want to look at two steps. So from 40, okay, to this point, which is 10. So I could do 40, and I take two steps to get to 10. Now to solve this second equation, I can divide by 40 on both sides. And then I could take the square root. We can undo a square by square rooting. And ultimately, this case, you're going to get b is 1/2. It's much easier to solve the other equation, just 40b equals 20, but sometimes I don't get 2 points that are right next to each other. So the exponent is going to be how many steps to get from one height to another. So I got b is 1/2. And then I saw that I have 20 and 1/2. So y equals 20 times 1/2 to the x. Once again, 2 points help me find my starting value and my multiplier. We can do this. Now is the time where it gets a little trickier. Okay, if we're given 2 points, we can do this as well. Okay, we found 2 points on a table, we found 2 points on a graph. Now, I want you to look at those 2 points that I gave you and think about what's different between this example and the graph or the table, because either or, I gave you 2 points. But why is this one different? Now, hopefully you said I don't have the y-intercept here, and that's correct. If I don't have the y-intercept, I don't know the a value. So in this case, we're going to find the b value first. Okay, first find the b value, find the multiplier. So we're going to come up with an equation. So I see we start at 2 and then have to go to 6. So that is 6 minus 2 is 4 steps. Okay, to get from 16 to 256, I got to take 4 steps. Okay, the 4 comes from the 6 minus 2. And I like slope. x2 minus x1. So 6 minus 2 equals 4. So if I take 16 and multiply by b 4 times, so 16 times b times b times b times b, I get 256. Now we're going to go ahead and solve this. So I divide both sides by 16. And now we're going to have to think about how to do this. And you may need a strong enough graphing calculator or a scientific calculator. Your phone, I'm afraid I don't think your phone can do this. Okay. Your calculator, you need to find the button on your calculator, and I can show you where it is. You need to say the fourth root. Or we could also say to the fractional power of 1/4. Either of these will work. So the fourth root of 16 or 16 to the 1/4 power, and you get 2. Okay, I'm more than happy to show you, but depending on your calculator, you might have a slightly different button. And we can, either way, we can do the fourth root or fractional exponent. So we found the b value. Yay, halfway there. Actually, more than halfway there. So now we're going to put a, or we're going to substitute b into the equation. Okay, so we need to find a. So we put b into the equation. Okay, we have a times b to the x. We now know b. And we also know a point. We either know 216 or 256. You can choose either point you want. Let's see which one I chose. Of course, I chose the one with smaller numbers. I like dealing with smaller numbers. 2 is my x, 16 is my y. So I put 2 in for the x and 16 in for the y. And once again, you could solve this. Use order of operations, solve, get a by itself. Okay, 2 squared is 4. We could divide, we could solve for a. Still solving, coming back, so we know a is 4 and b is 2. And we know our equation now. 4 times 2 to the x. Now in these cases, a does not have to be an integer. A could be a decimal. B could be a decimal. It could be a fraction. The problems aren't going to tell you, okay, we have to have nice, pretty numbers all the time. So that's why we practice these. Now, speaking of practice, it is your turn. So, starting with a times b to the x. Okay, that's what this last sentence means. Assume each graph has a asymptote at y equals 0, which means k is 0. You're going to find the a and the b values. You're going to write me 2 different equations. This should take you 5-10 minutes to try these 2. Practice it. See that you can do it. And then when you're ready, you unpause the video. I will show you the slide with the answers, and you check if you know how to do it or if you need more practice. Okay. If you need more practice, keep pausing the video. If not, here come the answers. Let's take a look. Okay, there is the work and the answers. Okay, we got fraction for A for one of them. We got decimals for A and B. Now the rounding, it'll probably say round about 3 decimals. If you round it to 2, your answer might be slightly different, but that's okay as well. Okay, once again, we needed to know where the fourth root button is on our calculator, or after we divided by 6. We need to know where the square root button is. So that's how we can find our multiplier and our starting value when we're trying to write exponential functions. I can do it from a table. I can do it from a graph. I can do it from any random 2 points. I can do it from a situation problem where they give it to me. We need to find the starting value and the multiplier every single time. So ideally, if they give you the y-intercept, that's the a value. Okay, to find the multiplier, we figure out where we start, the starting height, and our new height, and then b to however many steps we took. So whatever is the difference of the x's. So in the last problem, okay, for example b, we took 4 steps to get from -2 to 2. 2 minus -2 is 4. Over on example A, 4 minus 2 is 2, so that's why this exponent was 2. And how do we get from 3 to 27 in 2 steps? We multiply by 3 twice. Here we multiply by this ugly decimal. And always remember to write your final answer. Get the a value, get the b value, y equals something times something to the x power. And for most of what we're doing here, our k value or horizontal asymptote is going to be 0. And that is how you write exponential functions given any 2 points. Next lesson, we're going to learn about logarithms.